Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Dennis. So this week I've decided to make a move to the new AMD products, starting with the motherboard. I have the MSI Pro X670-P Wi-Fi motherboard, AM5 motherboard. We're going to go over it. We're going to show you some of the differences between that and the AM4 and show you some of the new stuff that's on it. So let's get it out of the box and have a look. Here we go. Okay, so we'll start with getting a look at the box. So MSI's Pro Series Pro X670-P Wi-Fi AMD motherboard AM5. This is the X670 version of their AM5 motherboard. PCIe 5.0 ready, graphics and NVMe only. Okay, so it has DDR5 support and of course overclocking support. So we're going to get it out and let's have a look at it. So let's quickly open this up. Now, one thing they do nowadays is they have to check the pins when you get them because their pins are now on the motherboard. They're not on the CPU anymore. So that's one big change. All right. So, of course, they have to take it out and they have to verify the pins, which by doing that means that you don't have a defective product or anything like that, which with a CPU, that happened to me once. So let's see what else is in here first before we go over the motherboard, which is what I typically do. So let's get the cardboard out of here, see what else we got. So in here we have for your M.2. Now this is different again, and I'll show you this. It's got a little, so this is different again because this is a different bracket for fastening in your M.2, I believe. Anyway, we'll get a look at that in a little minute. So we also have our I/O shield. Nothing fancy, but it's better labeled, which is good. We have another M.2 to hold it down. They're differently shaped because of the way they fasten in. It's kind of like the new, some of the ASUS motherboards where they have you just turn it. So there's no screw involved. So it's just a quick in, quick out. Now, of course, we have our antennas. Okay, for your Wi-Fi, of course. Have a couple SATA cables. We have MSI's regulatory notices and all that kind of good stuff. Oh, they include, how many of these do they include? So you actually have a total of 4. You have 3 of the different types of M.2. And I'm not sure what this one is. Let me just have a look here. So this is an M3 screw. Okay, never seen that before, to be honest. Either that or they're just packaging it differently. And of course, you have your quick install guide. Okay, it's in multiple languages. Tells you how to install everything, including the new CPU, which I'll do in a later video. All right, so we're going to get everything back to the motherboard, and we'll continue on. Okay, so I wanted to show you something here. So I put an M.2 in here, and they've referred to this little piece that I was showing you earlier as an M.2 Locker, which is great. But if you have one like this, it didn't work. It just, I'm not sure why, but it did not fasten it down. So it may work for some and not for others, depending on whether you have a heat spreader, which seems pretty ridiculous to me, but that's just the way it is, I guess. So simply push it down, it comes up, put it down, and you just push it. You have to push it so it's over top. Maybe that's what I did wrong. I'll just try it again here in a minute with the other one. And it locks it in place. So no more messing with it. But I don't see the point to it personally because you still have to screw it to the motherboard. It's not really much of a solution, to be honest. And on an X670 motherboard, I expected more, to be quite honest. So I did want to try it one more time. So I'm pushing it down. And let's just see. Maybe I just did something wrong. Maybe I either have to push it up. It's really not working, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure what the point of this thing is if it doesn't work on every M.2 drive. So, personally, that's pretty crappy. Okay, maybe it's not. Okay, so I was able to move it, find a little empty spot. It is in there. Good. So a little different, a little trickier than I honestly find it kind of a pain in the arse, to be honest with you. So sorry for my words on that. Because now, to try and get that out, it's kind of stuck in there. There's no easy way to get it out unless you got like something small. So how is that any good? Right? They got to really step up their game. They're going to charge the kind of prices they are for these motherboards and want people to buy them. They got to really come ahead a little bit better than that. I mean, honestly, it seems like, okay, I found a spot, tucked it under, no problem, right? But I can't get it out. My finger won't fit in there. My little small screwdriver won't fit in there. Maybe a flat screwdriver. See if I can get something that might do it. But see how much I'm messing around with this stuff now? And you shouldn't have to do that. So, yeah, I'm not really liking this new M.2 Locker thing. Look how much effort I had to do for that. Do it right, guys. This is... Okay. So far, not impressed with the motherboard. Straight up. All right. I'm not one to criticize things very often. But this thing cost me like $480 or something. But after I put a 3-year warranty on it to buy it, it came like $519. So they're going to do little things like that. Make them so they work right. Don't make me have to mess around with them. All right, that's my little blab so far. And that's just one thing so far. I haven't even got started yet. Okay, so this is the new thing with the pins. Oh, I do want to show you that. So again, now it's just a matter of pushing it down, letting it come up. All right, now that should, I would have thought, just opened up. So why is it not? Interesting. So you open it up, all your pins are in here. Don't touch them, okay? Be very careful, but be very observant that these things aren't damaged, all right? So again, I'm just going to put that down to protected. And it's going underneath of that. Push it toward underneath, good to go. So that's where your CPU is going to go. All right, so let's start getting on to the main things of the motherboard that we are used to. And let's go over some of the features that are new on this motherboard. Okay, so let's start with this. So this is our Gen 5 M.2. Okay, so that is referred to as the Lightning Gen. Okay, so PCIe 5.0. And it's got all this on here. I'm going to take this off and show it to you. Just because, why not? Let's see this whole thing. Okay, so you loosen these two screws. This one here, and this one here. And let's see what we got when I'm done. All right, this one a little more. Wow, it's really on there tight. I hope I'm not breaking it by trying to take it off. It's kind of, yeah, something's weird going on there. It's like it's, oh, okay. It's off. You have a pad underneath, okay, for cooling. Don't forget to take this little bit of plastic off. And of course, underneath here, you have another M.2 locker. So if this is the right size, great. If it's not, then you'll have to put it in here. Okay, so, all right, they may have not done such a great job on this one and the way it works. And of course, you just heard my opinion on that. But they have two different ones on here. So I don't know if you have to take that one off to put that one on. So again, this is all experimental stuff. So let's find out what happens when I put this in here. So let's put in, this is not Gen 5, by the way. Okay, so this is a 2280. So that's going to fit on there, and you'll be able to fasten it on. Not much of a problem. And this would be 2210, I do believe they call it. Or 110, 22110. Okay, so they'll both go on there. You're not going to probably need this one. You're going to use this one most commonly. And again, make sure that if there's any plastic, it's taken off, and that's fastened on. So I'm going to take a second. I'm going to put this back on. We're going to continue on. Okay, so I got it back on. And the other thing is, of course, this supports the new Ryzen 7000 series desktop processors. Okay, and you will need DDR5 memory for this motherboard. Okay, so a few things to go over, of course, are expansion slots. Okay, you've got two that are steel reinforced. Okay, so there's some things I want to point out. Of course, I got it back on. Okay, so on here, you've got three PCIe 4.0 times 16 slots. So these three here. And of course, they did include one, thankfully, one PCIe 3.0 times 1 slot. All right, some motherboards, the newer ones even, which are super expensive, which I'll point out again because I just can't get over the pricing, have stopped including that because they don't think anybody needs it. Well, if you ever need an adapter, that's a slot it's going to go into sometimes. So just be aware of that. And of course, your display interface supports 4K at 120 Hertz and specified at the HDMI 2.1 FRL, DisplayPort 1.4, and one Type-C DisplayPort. Okay, now this requires processor graphics. Okay, of course, you're going to put on a graphics card on here if you don't have it on your CPU already. Memory support. Down here, we have 4 DIMM slots. Now, your 4 DIMM slots are dual channel DDR5 up to 6600. I think the one I got is a bit lower than that, so I'm going to have to check compatibility. So our M.2 slots, so of course the first one here, all right, is M.2 Gen 5 times 4, 128 gigabyte a second slot. Then you have 3 M.2's Gen 4 times 4, 64 gigabytes per second. And then of course you have 6 SATA. So 6 SATA at 6 gigabytes per second ports, which is pretty much a standard these days. So let's go on to talk about a few other things. I'm going to start focusing more on different sides of the board like I have in previous videos, and we'll talk about those. Okay, starting on this side, the back side of your motherboard, we've got our flash BIOS button, our HDMI and DisplayPort. We have our USB 3.2 Gen 2 10 gigabyte a second Type A, and on the bottom we have our USB 3.2 Gen 2 10 gigabyte per second Type C DisplayPort. You have 4 USBs here, USB 3.2 Gen 1 at 5 gigabytes per second Type A, followed by another Type C 3.2 Gen 2 times 2, 20 gigabytes per second. Again, Type C. Above that, you have your USB 3.2 Gen 2 10 gigabyte a second Type A, and of course, your 2.5 gigabyte LAN. Okay, of course, then we move over to our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, okay? And then on the left, we have our SPIFT out, or RS out, CS out is commonly referred to, your mic, line out, and line in. So that's how she all works, which is not usually the typical of how I look at it, but that's how they labeled it. So I just thought to make sure that I mentioned that. So the other thing is the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi on this motherboard is Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. Keep in mind, it's only good to you if you have the support either through your home network or something like that, because if you don't have it at home, of course, you're not going to be able to access that speed. So your LAN that I mentioned, the 2.5 gig LAN, is a Realtek 8125B. And your wireless is AMD Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth 5.2, as I mentioned earlier. And your audio, which is over here, you can see the traces where it keeps it from making all the hissing and popping sounds, all that kind of good stuff. You've got HD audio with audio boost, and you have 7.1 and 8 channel. All right, so 8 channel, 7.1 HD audio with audio boost. I'll say that right one of these days. And so let's move on to some other things. I'm always trying to focus, but I tend to miss things sometimes, so bear with me. So anyway, let's move on to the bottom of the motherboard. So again, going from left to right, on our left we have an addressable RGB. We have 2 system fan headers. We have our 24 volt, 24 pin for power, your USB-C port, and you have 6 gigabyte per second ports here, and a USB 3.2 right there. So there's your SATA, right here. You got 6 of them. Okay, something I did miss, I just wanted to point out, of course, is you have your easy debug LEDs here. Okay, so your CPU, your memory, all that kind of good stuff. So if you're having problems with your memory, your CPU, your graphics, it's going to give you an indicator on here so you know what's going wrong. All right, so that covers this side of the board. Let's move on to this side. Okay, again, left to right, we have 2 8 pins for power for CPU. All right, we have our pump or fan header here, another system fan header here, your RGB, okay, and you have another addressable RGB down here. And on the far left-hand side, you can't really see it. That's where I pointed out on the back side, the flash BIOS button. So just to make sure you know, it's like right down in the corner. So right down in this corner, right down here. All right. So okay, starting left to right on the top here, you have your jumpers, front panel 1 and 2. So basically this is where all your case cables are going to go, and your speaker goes here. You have another addressable RGB, USB 3, 2 USB 2s. You have 2 system fan headers, your JT1, which is your, it's used at the factory to test CPU pins. That's what I was able to find out about it. Okay, next to that you have your JBD1, which is something that they use at the factory to go into some kind of diagnostic mode. Okay, to the right of that end, we have our JBAT1, which is used for your clear CMOS jumper. And then you have your, down below it, your JCI1, which is your chassis intrusion jumper. Now, I've done a video on that in case you ever run into a problem. Moving across from that, we have the JDASH, well, it's mouthful, JDASH1, which is basically some kind of tuning controller connector. Okay, so a lot of these things you're not going to have to worry about. So things you're going to have to worry about yourself are the audio, your RGB. You won't have to worry about any of this. Or the JBAT, you might, in case you want to clear CMOS. Your USB, your system fan headers, your USB, and of course, your adjustable RGB and your system fan, or your front panel connectors. Right? Those are the only things you have to worry about. So that covers pretty much everything there. Your CMOS battery is right here. Okay, I talk about it a lot. People ask me. You pop it out, little tab there, and it comes out. Wait about 30 seconds to a minute. Pop it back in. You'll clear your CMOS that way. So you won't even probably need the other little jumper that I'm showing you. So getting back to the memory, I just want to point out that it's 4 slots that can take DDR5, and it supports up to 128 gigabyte at DDR5 6000 on overclock. All right, these are just things I like to point out, make sure you know about them. So something else is, this is an ATX form factor, which is 12 inches by 9.6 inches, or for those that like millimeters, 304 by 243. Your BIOS features, you have one 256 megabyte flash, you have UEFI AMI BIOS, ACPI 6.4, and SMBIOS 3.5, multi-language. So those are all the features that it supports and it has on the board. Software, of course, it'll have the drivers that come with it, which none came with this one, which is very surprising. Like, very, very surprising, to be quite honest with you. But, I mean, when you don't have it, I guess you'll have to go online to get the drivers, which I'm going to have to inquire, because I've never had that happen before, that they don't include the drivers in the box. So I'm wondering if something has happened with this. You also get MSI Center, which is the new version of what they call for the apps for Center for MSI. CPU-C, MSI Gaming, so that's going to be on here. You get 8064 Extreme MSI Edition, and it comes, of course, with Norton 360 Deluxe, which I may never use. Although sometimes I use it just for the first little while, just to have an antivirus program on there. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Just trying to see if there's anything I missed. I don't think there is. But if you have questions, please get back to me and ask me what you want to hear or what you want to know that maybe I missed. So I'm just going to go down here one more time. Now, one of the other things I do want to mention, of course, is that it has 14 dual rail power system. Now, something I do want to point out is your VRMs are very capable. They've been tested thoroughly. You're not going to have any problems with that. But your CPU, depending on what you get, it's going to reach 95 degrees. It's like they've designed it to hit that temp when you're kind of full load or just heavy gaming. Not to be concerned with that. That is what they've designed it at. So I'm going to try when, of course, I put a CPU in here, if it applies to all of them eventually over time. And you can keep a track and see which ones do and which ones don't. As far as I know, they all do, but I guess we'll find out. Very hefty motherboard. Okay, this sucker is heavy. Heaviest motherboard I've ever had. Which, considering what's on it, it's pretty good. This is the back of the motherboard, which I want to show you because everything is new. You can see your traces. Okay, quite a bit different backplate on it than what I've ever had before. So it will be interesting to see how a CPU cooler is going to go on there. And overall, pretty pleased with this. Well, except for that the M.2 lock, which I think is horrible, but that's just me. At least in here, you're going to be put it in. Hopefully it'll work okay. But I'm not a big fan of these. Not at all. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like when you turn it here, it turns okay. But once you lock it in place, like I had to do for that one M.2 drive, it was difficult to get it back out. All right, everybody. So that's the video. Covered everything that I could think of. If I left anything out, let me know in the comments. And I'll try and put it in, maybe a short. Gonna try starting doing some shorts. When people ask me stuff, I'm thinking those would make good shorts. Just do a little short, cover that one point, and get them out there. So if you have questions from this point on, I'm gonna try and do shorts. Answer that question in there. I'll put it in comments too, so make sure I answer you back. But I'll do a little short so everybody else has the answers, that answer as well. I am very concerned that this motherboard did not come with the DVD drivers. That's not right. And I'm going to have to contact the person I got it from, the place I got it from, and say, what's going on? Because that should have come like that, hands down. I shouldn't have to search for that to get all the drivers down. There's a lot of software, and I'm certainly not downloading it all. That's going to be something they're going to have to take care of for me. Anyway, if you like the video, hit that like. Tell me what you like or don't like in the comments. If you're new here, think about subscribing. Hit that bell for notifications for future videos. And hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. We'll be doing a build. And if you want to know, or if you're interested in a particular CPU, tell me which one you want me to install in this. And which one you want to see the most. If I get a certain number of replies, and you all go for a certain one, then I'll try and buy that CPU to put in it. So to make sure it's all covered. But otherwise, I'll just pick whatever one I can afford or whatever one I think I want to get. So let me know. Don't cheap out and not let me know, because then you just get what you get. All right. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you take the time. See you next time. Take care.